Hello guys, welcome back to John's Workshop, and in this video we're going to go back onto the shaper refurb. We're getting close to the end now, and I really want to not lose the momentum and keep going, so in this video we're going to attack the tool slide right on the front of the ram, and we're going to pick up one or two other bits while we've got the orange paint out that need a bit of painting. Nothing special about those, I'll just show probably a quick before and after. And we're going to do a quick update on the ram from where we left it in part 8 when I did the last shaper update when we refitted the ram. And I have a question for shaper owners, especially any shaper owners that have got an Atlas 7B. So if you're falling into that category, then please stick around because I need your help. So without any more waffling, I'll bring you in at the temporary bench and we'll crack on with the tool slide and the question. Okay, so here's the tool slide that sits on the front of the ram with the tool holder in the front, and this is just as it was stripped last December when the shaper turned up. It's been sat on the bench since then, not done anything with it since the day I stripped it. Not in too bad condition, bit of light surface rust here and there, the usual paint issues that I've had everywhere else on the machine, where this grey paint's just flaking off every time you touch it. Yeah, bits of surface rust. So don't know about the slideways yet because I've not touched that. I don't intend really moving them until I've stripped it. So the question for shaper owners, so I'm thinking the ones that I know watch my channel, so Michelle, Rustinox, Dean, Air Cave Shop in particular, but anybody else who owns a shaper. One thing that's immediately apparent, and this is my ignorance of shapers, is whether the tool lantern style tool holder, as I would call it, from similar to what you have on a lathe, on an old-fashioned lathe, where that fits through this part of the clapper box, the clapper mechanism here. It is, you know, I think I could chuck it in to that hole from the other end of the garage and probably score 3 out of 10 every time I tried, because there's just like loads and loads of clearance in there. Now obviously when you put your tool in there and clamp everything up, it's going to pull that back against the flat face at the back, so it will probably take a lot of that out, but to my mind that just doesn't seem right. So question to shaper owners, is that usual, or is that not a good thing? Because if that's not a good thing, then the easiest way to fix that is to, well, either make a, it's probably as quick to make either bit really, but either make a new one of these or a new one of these. So yeah, I'll take your advice. I can rebuild it with what we've got for now, but I think that's probably, there's a future project in there somewhere. Okay, so I'll get this stripped down into a few more separate bits and pieces. Once I've got it all laid out on the bench, I'll bring you back. So Dean at the Air Cave Shop, if you're not watching him, go and check him out. He's also restoring a Atlas 7B, and I'm going to move back to the bench. So as part of Dean's refurbishment, he's made new lead nuts, and he's made 2 or 3 extras for this particular slideway. And Dean said he knew I was doing this refurb myself, and he said, happy to post one off to you, John, just confirm your threads. Well Dean, I've stripped it, I've measured it, and I've just confirmed it is 1/2 inch 10 TPI left hand thread. However, I've knocked the lead nut out of the casting, out of the main casting, and I've just dropped it straight back on the lead screw, just making sure there was no ugly bits of swarf or anything first. And to be honest, I've been right the way along the full length of the lead screw with the lead nut, and anywhere I check it I'm struggling to influence. I mean, there's probably about a thou, if that, of movement. So as with everything else on this shaper and the slideways as well, I really don't think this has done a lot. It's obviously old and it needs a tidy up, but yeah. So Dean, I know, thank you very much for your kind offer, but I think if you did send me that through, I'd be storing it somewhere for if I ever need to replace, because this is really quite good. So, and I know postage is really expensive at the minute, mate, so save your postage, hang on to that, and in case you need a spare one or anybody else does in the future, because that is really quite good all the way down that length. But as I said, for those of you that aren't Dean, go and check Dean's channel out. He's making, I will say it now and be totally honest, a much better job, a much more thorough job of his restoration than I'm making of mine, and I'm going to use the word functional for what I'm doing. So it's, yeah, Dean's really gone to town in terms of doing a bit of scraping and really going to town on his. So anyway, we've got all the bits apart, as you can see, so I'm sure you guys don't want to watch me scratching away with Scotch-Brite and cleaning up. There's, you know, there's some bits of surface rust here and there that are going to come off okay in the usual manner with Scotch-Brite, WD-40. So I'll set about all of these and start cleaning all the bits and pieces up, and I'll bring you back when we're probably in a position to paint. There's not a lot of paint to do on this. There's just these two bits here on the base casting, and then there's just the small piece on the front of the main slide here. And I'm even not going to strip this. This feels absolutely, it feels really nice in there, that there's no horrible nasty noises, so I'm just going to work around that rather than stripping all that. I'm going to clean everything up. I'm not stripping it unless I need to. That is really nice. So we're going to make sure we get some fresh oil in it once we're done, and we're just going to clean up around it. So I'll bring you back when we've cleaned everything up. So while that other bloke with the blue shirt on is cleaning all those mucky bits of shaper up, I'm going to show you this. So where we left this in part 8 was I'd got the ram refitted, and I just needed to fit the bevel gear in from underneath here to the mechanism here to change the position of the stroke. And I was going to film that, and if I had filmed that, I think I would have needed every single memory card that's available on Amazon to do that. So if anybody else is doing one of these, don't do it that way. Go and watch the way Dean did it, because I'm sure that would have been much quicker. I had a right game. Anyway, we got it done in the end, and the reason I had a game was because the gear that fits in there has got a steel bush inside it, and the steel bush had twisted inside the gear body itself, and I was peering down this hole here looking for the alignment with the shaft and the gear to knock the roll pin in, and I just couldn't find it, and I was backwards and forwards, and it was, yeah, it took a long time, and then I suddenly dawned on what was happening. So took the gear back out, reset the steel liner inside the gear so it lined up with the holes in the gear, put it back in, 2 or 3 goes, sorted, got the pin in, knocked it in from the underneath. So we're now back in business. I've just reloaded the clamp at the moment. This needs to come back off and all be cleaned up, but I've reloaded it just to test, and we're now in a position where our stroke position mechanism all works very nicely. So we've given it a good coat of grease on the gears, and that's all now set back up, and it's all connected up now to the drive mechanism, and that turns very nice and freely. I'm just turning the shaft there. I've not even got the pulley on, so I'm just turning that with my fingers on the shaft, so that's all nice and free. So I'm really pleased with that, the way that's rebuilt. So I'll hand you back to the guy who's cleaning all the mucky bits up. Hope he's doing a good job. So we've got all our bits and pieces cleaned up, well, apart from the odds and ends in this tub, and ready for degrease and paint now. across here and in here, and I just thought now we've got everything cleaned I would measure, trying to understand this slop situation that we've got, that I pointed out at the start, where this is quite wibbly wobbly. This is hard, so there's no wear on that, so that's not worn. This is soft, but I can see all the original machining marks, as rough as they are, in this bore, and I've measured this in lots of places, albeit only using a vernier. It's a 1-inch bore, you know, it's 25.4, 25.37, 25.47, so it's a little bit out of round by 3 or 4 thou, 25.4, and I've measured it front to back and I'm getting the same measurements. So that, I'm convinced, is original and should be a 1-inch bore. This, I'm not convinced is original, it could be. And this measures 25 on the nose, ground, hardened and ground finish. So there is 0.4 of a mil slop between the two components. Yeah, so I really don't know. I don't know if somebody's replaced this with a new bit and made it 25, or whether that's the way it's meant to be. Really don't know. So as I said at the start, any advice welcome. With that being said, we're now going to get degreased, masked up and get the painting done. Okay, we're getting our bits and pieces ready for paint, so they've all been degreased. You'll see I've thrown a couple more in, so we're going to do the door and also the top clamp that goes on top of the ram. I just thought I'd point out again the masking process that I use. So I'm using low tack masking tape, and you'll see, you know, some of these features, like these counterbores in here, incredibly difficult to mask an area like that if you're trying to use scissors or, you know, however else. And just using the file method that I've shown before just makes that really easy. So I'm going to do just this top portion on here, so everything's degreased. Important, a very fine file that also needs to be degreased, because the next thing that's going to touch these parts is paint, so you don't want to be putting a tool that's got grease and oil back on top. So I'm just going to get a piece of masking tape. I'm going to press it on really hard so that it's got a really good adhesion to that degreased face, and then basically I'm just going to use my file and just gently roll round the edge of that casting. Sometimes you need to use the very tip of the file as opposed to the flat of the file when you've got irregular shapes, like we've got a bit there. So it's just a case of jiggling around with the tip of the file until you can see the base metal coming through the masking tape all the way around. Very quick and easy, not really pressing on hard, just enough to break that masking tape seal. And when you've got to that point where you're all the way around, you should then be able to remove the waste, and there, that's that shape perfectly masked up. So if you're ever doing anything like this, it's a really easy way of doing it. And for these holes, you know, I did nothing any different. I pushed the masking tape in, pressed it in really hard with my thumb, and then I was just basically using the very tip of the file, just going around scraping the edges around the hole, and same process. And I thought I'd show it again, largely because I watched a video last night, one of my channels that I subscribe to, Ian Matthews, who's a slightly different channel to me, but still very sort of engineering focused and materials focused, and he was doing a restoration of an old plane, and he called out the masking tape method that I've shown, and he called out that he'd seen it on somebody else's channel, and I thought I'd just point it out and just make a point and a statement here that whilst lots of people in YouTube go chasing after the money and high views and high subscribers and all the rest of it, you know, trying to earn big money from YouTube, that's not what I'm about at all. And I absolutely, so Ian calling out the fact that he'd seen that tip on somebody else's channel and spreading that knowledge amongst an even broader audience and wider audience, that for me is the payback for the time and effort it takes to do this kind of thing on YouTube. That gives me enormous pleasure, having seen somebody else benefit from a tip that you know, and it's not my tip, it's something that I was taught years ago by somebody else, but it's that sharing of knowledge and passing on of knowledge. For me, that's what this whole YouTube community is all about. So with that podium speech out the way, what I'm going to do now is crack on with some painting, and I'm not going to subject you guys to that. It's not very exciting. So I'll bring you back when we've got these painted up. Okay, we've got to the end of our painting works and cleanup works, so we've got all our bits ready for refit. The only thing I've done off camera is I've refitted the lead nut back into the base unit, the base casting for the tool slide. So what we're going to do now is fit that back to the machine, and then we're going to start assembling all of the tool slide back together, and I think I'm going to do that on the machine rather than assembling it on the bench and then putting it all up together. So I'll join you in a minute at the machine when we fit the base casting. So I'm just going to make sure this face is good. There's a couple of dings around the top. I don't think they're protruding over the face, but just to be sure, I'm just going to run an oil stone over there. Can't feel it picking up on anything. Yeah, can't feel that picking up on any high spots. That's good. Okay, we'll bring our tool slide over now and start to reassemble that. So first thing we're going to do is just drop our give screws in. Well, there we go guys, that's got that where it should be now. I was struggling a bit there, and what it was, I thought it was the gib, but it wasn't. It was this nut here underneath the hand wheel. I just over tightened that too much, so the minute I back that off, reset the gib, that's now very nice, and I've got no appreciable play in there. So we'll go with that to start with and see how we get on. So the next piece now is to get the clapper assembly back on the front. Well, there we go, that's got our tool slide back rebuilt and back on the machine on the front of the ram, so it's really now starting to look like a shaper again, which is good. So we're nearly on the home straight on this thing. There's a bit more work to do. We've got a couple of other bits and pieces, as you've seen there, painted as well and put back on. So I think that's going to be it for this video. So there's a few more bits to do, so there's going to be at least another 2 or 3 in this series yet. I've got the guards to do, the belt guards, I've got the lay shaft unit on the back to do, and the motor and motor mount to do, and 1 or 2 other bits and pieces still to do. So there's a bit more to go, but I'm starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel, which is very nice, and I am itching to get this complete and have a play with it. So thank you all very much for watching. Thank you to the subscribers and the new subscribers that have come along, and we'll catch you all very soon on another video when we'll be making something else.